invite again to the stage President and CEO of JS Bank to talk about reinventing banking in the digital age.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I was concerned that post lunch everybody would be a bit sleepy, but after her talk, I think everybody's geared up and they're feeling like they need to make a change. What a great presentation. Thank you. So, my topic today, reinventing banking in the digital age. So, there's a quote that we hear as a banker. I think there's not a week that goes by that I hear it. It says, banking is necessary, but banks are not. This is unfortunately the mantra of every fintech out there raising money, and I hear it every week. Not a week goes by I don't hear this. But I bring it up because, of course, we hear it every single day now. But what's relevant is this was actually said by Bill Gates in 1994. So this was said almost 3 decades ago. If we think back to where we were in 1994, and somebody had said this to us, I'm sure, at least to me, it would have made no sense whatsoever, what it even meant. Because remember, back then, we were really happy we were getting some of our branches online. So that's kind of where we were. But over the last couple of years, this saying, banking is necessary, but banks are not, has become very relevant. So I'm going to, before I get into my talk, I want to show you a little video. You might say it's a bit of a marketing pitch, but at the end of the day, we are salespeople, so selling is always good. But I think why it's important is it will help conceptualize what I'm going to talk about and also show relevance to what we are struggling at and how we need to change.
मेरी जिंदगी है simple सी सीधी सीधी so that time and money एक ही चीज है एक ही चीज if you know then you know simple कर ले simple go जिंदगी जैसे जिंदगी simple हो जीऊं जैसे जाऊं चाओ में पिला दे चाय numbers multiplying on my interface you wonder why some चले हैं देख ले जो रास्ते तेरे सामने खुले सबके खुले हाथों में तू रह it's a must आज अपना गलत ना बात भी सिंपल फोन मेरा इधर है मुझे क्या फिक्र है चलता है इशारों पे बैठा सितारों पे मैं हजारों में हूँ मैं सबकी निगाहों में प्लान्स ऐसे बनाऊं मैं सबको ये बात सुनाऊं देख जिंदगी से सिंपल हो जाए सब जिंदगी से सिंपल सिंपल करो जिंदगी से जिंदगी को सिंपल सिंपल जिंदगी से जिंदगी हो सिंपल सिंपल simple 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 simple
पाकिस्तान का पहला fully customizable financial solution Zindagi download now.
So notice this is GS Bank brand. But it does not say JS Bank anywhere because unfortunately for the Gen Z today, banking has almost become a bad name. So the minute we put JS Bank to it or any bank to it, they're skeptical from the word get-go. But okay, so let me get into what I'm going to talk about. And my subject is reinventing digital banking today. So 4 things I want to cover. One is the threat and the associated urgency. I'm going to talk about what is. It's very easy to confuse transformation with digital banking, so I'll just touch upon that. Then I'm going to talk about what is digital banking and how I think we can reinvent ourselves, if at all. So now, threat and urgency. If you think about it, banks essentially do 3 things, right? We are deposit takers, we lend, and we make payments. Now, payments is a space that has come under threat right now. So as you know, domestic payments today, globally, are done from banks. So Apple Pay, Google Pay, AliExpress Pay, Venmo, PayPal, they've taken that space. It's a game that banks have lost all over the world. Cash is gone, and of course COVID has helped, contactless payments has helped that transition. But thankfully for us, domestic remittance was a business that banks never, whether in the US or in Pakistan, we never really made much money on domestic remittances. So even if you have lost that to the fintechs, it's not hurting our bottom lines. If it's not hurting our bottom lines, then what is the crisis? I think the crisis is the speed at which the change happened. No one could have thought that in a matter of 4 years, banks would entirely lose this piece of the business completely. And what the urgency is that as soon as they've killed the domestic business, now every fintech is in the international payment space. Cross-border international payments is a very profitable business for banks. To lose that to fintechs then definitely starts hurting our bottom lines. And the other urgency, of course, is once all these people are customers of banks, they will quickly, using data, move into deposits and lending, and that's really where we will struggle. So that is the threat, and that is the urgency with which we need to change. Now, we've been at it for a few years. Maybe now it's clearer to people, but I just want to talk about what is digital banking and what is transformation, because it's very easy to get confused between the two. All the time we hear terms like RPA, big data, CRM, dashboarding, open banking, API management, mobile banking, internet banking, even ATMs back in the day. These are not digital banking. These are only transformation pieces, they're cost efficiency pieces, they are pieces, they're alternate delivery channels to a physical branch, but they are not digital banking. So I think for all of us here, we should be clear, transformation is as critical, but that is not digital banking. So we should be clear in our mind between the two. Now to me, when anybody comes to me and says, is this digital banking? I have a list of 3 things, and I said, if any product or service meets all 3 of those criteria, then we can consider it digital banking. What are those 3 criteria? 1, there should be no physical interaction between the customer and a traditional bank branch. So that has to stop. That's the first test. No physical interaction. The service has to be fully digitized. For that to happen, the service has to be fully digitized, end to end. So the front end has to be digital, the middle end has to be digital, the fulfillment has to be digital. Second, it's instant customer gratification. So unless you have instant customer gratification as a second test, it cannot be digital. So, you'll forget most of my talk, but just remember, as a North Star to what instant customer gratification is, you should think about it should be as easy to open an account and transact on it as it is to do it on Spotify or to do it on Netflix. So if it passes that test of instant gratification, then it's digital. The third test it needs to pass is a zero margin for error. Now that's a tough test, but that is a test that has to pass. There has to be zero margin for error, because remember, if it's fully digital, computers don't make mistakes. If you have backup computers, if you have backup bandwidth availability, now there's cloud, so there's zero margin for error. And remember today, when there's an error, it goes viral in minutes and hours. So the NPS score on that product falls very, very quickly. So the third is zero margin for error. So it has to pass those 3 tests for it to be called a digital banking service. Now finally, how do we reinvent ourselves? So any typical bank will have at least minimum of 50, if not more, maybe 60 or 70 services. So of course there's deposits account, all kinds of deposit accounts, when there's autos, mortgages, credit cards, etc. But remember, there's also SME lending, there is all kind of trade finance products, there's corporate finance products, there's cash management, there's employee banking. So a typical bank will have at least 50 to 70 products. Now if you think back, to pass those 3 tests, most of these products today cannot pass those 3 tests. Why? Because the ecosystem for it doesn't exist. Can I do auto financing digitally today? I cannot. And remember, on my app, somebody filling out a query to say I want auto financing does not make it digital. right? Why can't I do it? Because we are not linked up to the car dealers. The car dealers are not linked up to the Sindh Authority for Car Registration. It just can't be done. We need physical verification, we need all of those things. So what we need to do really is then first come up with things that we can make end-to-end digital, make sure they pass those 3 tests, and then we start doing it. But the good news is that all of these fintechs, they also cannot, today a fintech also cannot go and do corporate LCs digitally. They can't, because blockchain doesn't exist, the ecosystem doesn't exist. So there is time. They struggle with the same ecosystem challenges that we struggle with today. So then there is an opportunity. That opportunity is when we find all the products that we can make end-to-end digital today, we start making them end-to-end digital today. But having said that, and actually doing it is not easy, because as banks, we are not set up to do things quickly and get to market fast and do it reliably. Just as banks, we're just not set up that way. We're a protected industry, we have been, and we just don't have that kind of agility. So I've kind of learned this the hard way also. So my view to this is that find the right team. Almost, if you're going to compete with the fintechs, we have to play like they play. So almost come up with a bank within the bank. Find the simplest products that you can digitize completely end to end. And then throw every management technique, jargon, tool that is available to you today. You've heard all of it, but trust me, it all helps. UI, UX designers, agile coaches, scrum masters, PMOs, Jira, Trello boards, MVPs, beta testing, do it all. Do it all. Because that is the only thing that will get you speed. The old way of putting a request to the IT department and hearing from them after 4 months, those days are done and those are over. That's not how tech firms work. And if you're going to play in that space, you better play by their rules. So that is my view to you. Pick up the simplest pieces of the bank, digitize them, and do it the way a fintech would do it. And I still hope that hopefully some of those products you can then say you are truly digital with, and that experience will then rival that as the best fintech in the world. Banks used to have an advantage. We had more capital and more money to throw at it, but that is also an advantage that is now gone. Fintechs have just as much money to throw at it. In fact, on customer acquisition, they can probably burn more money than we can. So in my view, and I'm at the end of my speech, in my view, the way to reinvent is just doing it, not to get worried, not to get bogged down, to do it piece by piece, do it simply, and hopefully then we can compete and stay relevant in what they now call banking 4.0. And just taking, and this is not to demoralize Zahid and many bankers here today, but hopefully if we do that, banks as we know it today may still exist, they may look different, but more importantly for us, the bankers that we are, we will stay relevant at least for the next 20 years. So that's my humble submission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I please request Talib S. Kareem, who is the president of the Management Association of Pakistan, to give Basir Shamsie, who is the president and CEO of JS Bank, a token of our appreciation. There's a small little something from us to you. But it's very interesting what your worldview of banks is, something that definitely everybody needs to think about in case they haven't already. Thank you very much.